The sky above Talaris 4 turned red before the people saw the ships. Giant dark vessels blocked the sunlight as they descended from the clouds. No warnings were given. No reasons were shared. The war began with fire raining from the sky. The alien race called the Varnex attacked without mercy. Their weapons tore through buildings and homes. Humans screamed and ran, trying to protect their children, their families, their world. The peaceful colony was never prepared for war, Sergeant Ethan Ward was stationed at the outer defense line. He was trained for combat, but not for an invasion this large. As explosions lit the ground around him, he barked orders, trying to save his squad from being wiped out in the first wave. The Varnex were not like any enemy he had studied. They were fast, ruthless, and fought as if they felt no pain. With every step they took, more of the colony was lost. Still, Ethan refused to retreat. He had made a promise to fight until his last breath to defend the civilians, but the defenses soon failed. The communications tower was destroyed. One by one, human positions were overrun. Ethan was pulled back by his commander, ordered to regroup with survivors in the forest north of the colony. Hours later, night fell. Smoke filled the air. Fires still burned across the land. Ethan and a small group of soldiers hid in silence, hearts pounding, eyes scanning every shadow. They didn't speak. They couldn't. If the Varnex heard them, they'd be dead. Then they saw something move. It wasn't one of them. At first, they thought it was a scout from their unit. But as the figure stepped into the moonlight, Ethan's eyes narrowed. It was a Varnex female. She stumbled through the trees, limping, her armor cracked, glowing blue blood leaking from her shoulder. His hand moved to his weapon. One order from command had been clear: no prisoners. But something about her didn't match the enemy they had fought. She wasn't attacking. She wasn't armed. She looked lost, scared, and wounded. Before he could say a word, she collapsed. To the ground, Ethan's squad raised their rifles. One soldier aimed at her head, but Ethan didn't give the order to fire. He stepped forward slowly. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the way she tried to stand back up despite the pain. Or maybe it was the way her eyes met his, defiant, but not cruel. She spoke in a broken translator voice. No fight. No more war. I was left behind. The squad didn't trust her. Neither did Ethan. But something deep in his gut told him. She wasn't lying. He remembered the screams of children. He remembered the friends he lost today. And yet, here was a chance, maybe not for peace, but for understanding. She could be a trap. She could be their death. Ethan made his choice. He lifted her carefully into his arms and said only one word to his team: move. Behind them, the sky cracked again with the sound of more ships arriving. The war wasn't over, not yet. But for Ethan, something had already changed. The forest was cold and quiet, but the silence didn't bring peace. Ethan carried the injured Varnex female through the trees, his arms tense, eyes watching for danger. His team followed closely, weapons still ready in case she tried anything. She was heavy, not from size but from her armor. Her breath was shallow. She was fading fast, her glowing blood leaving trails in the snow. Ethan didn't know how much longer she could stay alive. And he didn't know why he even cared. They reached an old cave, half hidden by thick vines and frozen mist. It had been used before by scouts during training missions. Now it would serve as shelter, at least for the night. Ethan laid her gently on the ground. The other soldiers didn't speak at first. One of them, Ramirez, finally broke the silence. "Sir, she's the enemy. Why are we wasting our time?" Ethan looked at the Varnex girl. She wasn't awake, but she was alive. "She's wounded," he said calmly, "and she surrendered. That makes her a prisoner, not a target." "She could be a spy," muttered another soldier. "She could be 100 things," Ethan replied. "But right now she's bleeding out, and we're not murderers." No one argued after that. Not out loud, at least. Ethan knelt beside her. Her skin was ice blue and soft like silk, but cut by small scars and tech markings. Metal parts merged with her body, alien machines that seemed almost alive. He touched one carefully. It hummed. Like it was reacting to him, he reached into the medkit and began treating her wound. It wasn't easy. Her biology was different, but the basics were the same: stop the bleeding, keep the body warm, and hope she pulls through. As he worked, her eyes fluttered open. They were bright violet, filled with pain and confusion. She looked up at him and whispered, "Why?" He didn't understand the question. Why what? Why help me? Ethan hesitated. Then he gave a small shrug. Because I had a choice, and I chose not to let you die. She stared at him for a long time. Then slowly she said, "You are not like the others." Neither of them spoke again after that. The rest of the night passed slowly. Ethan stayed awake, watching both her and the shadows outside. The war still raged far away, but he knew it wouldn't stay far forever. By morning, the Varnex girl was stronger. She sat up on her own, though her arm still shook. She didn't speak much, just watched the soldiers as they moved around. They watched her too, but with suspicion, not sympathy. One of the younger troops, Miller, brought her water. She took it carefully and gave a nod of thanks. It was the first sign that maybe she didn't hate all humans. Ethan approached her again. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then said, "Sira." "Sira," Ethan repeated. "I'm Ethan." A strange silence followed. They were from different worlds, different species. But in that moment, they weren't enemies. Just survivors. Sira looked at him and said quietly, "My people left me. I was hit in the strike. My signal broke. They thought I was dead." Ethan felt something heavy in his chest. Even her own army had turned away. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked away. "I would have done the same to you." Ethan didn't flinch. "Maybe, but you didn't. And now you're here." That night, the forest echoed with distant blasts. The war front was moving closer. Ethan knew they couldn't stay long. But where would they go with an enemy alien among them? Back at the main base, command wouldn't show mercy, not to her. He would be questioned too. Helping a Varnex could be seen as betrayal. But something told Ethan this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about what was right. He looked at Sira. She wasn't a soldier now, just a wounded soul. Like so many others in this war, he made a decision. "We're heading out tomorrow," he told his team. "North, through the mountains." Ramirez frowned. "That's the long way back," Ethan nodded. "Exactly." They all understood what that meant. And no one stopped him. The next morning brought more than just cold wind. A Varnex scout drone flew over the forest, silent and deadly. Ethan and his squad lay flat under the thick trees, breathing slowly, barely daring to blink. The drone passed without stopping, but they all knew it was just the beginning. They couldn't risk going south. The enemy would have more patrols there. So Ethan made the final call. They would head north, through the frozen pass, a deadly stretch of ice-covered mountains where even the wind could kill. Sira walked behind the squad, still weak, her arm bandaged tightly. She didn't complain. She didn't ask questions. But she didn't run either. She stayed close to Ethan, her glowing eyes watching every move he made. The climb was brutal. The snow came up to their knees, and the cold bit through even there. Best gear. Ethan helped Sira climb a steep ridge. Her fingers were numb, and her breath was shaky. But still, she pushed forward. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly as they paused to rest. Ethan looked around at his team, then back at her. "Because I believe not every enemy deserves to die." Sira didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Your people, they are strange." He smiled slightly. "You haven't seen anything yet." They moved again. By nightfall, The group found shelter in a half-collapsed outpost buried in snow. It was old and falling apart, but the power cells still worked. They had heat. They had light. For one night, they could breathe. Inside, the soldiers sat close together, sharing rations. Sira stayed on one side, watching but silent. No one invited her to eat. But Ethan walked over and handed her a small packet of protein cubes. She stared at it like it was gold. "It's not much," he said, "but it'll keep you alive." She accepted it and nodded. "Thank you." Ramirez looked at Ethan across the fire. "Sir, we need to talk." They stepped outside into the cold, breath turning to mist. "You trust her too much," Ramirez said. "What if she's tracking us? What if she's leading the Varnex right to us?" Ethan sighed. "I don't trust her. I'm watching her every move. But leaving her to die would have made us no better than the ones who started this war." Ramirez didn't argue. He just looked out at the mountains. "We won't survive another ambush, sir." "I know," Ethan replied quietly. The next day, the storm hit. Snow crashed down the mountainside. Visibility dropped to nothing. The group could barely see their own feet. They tied ropes around their waists to stay together. One wrong step could mean death. Sira suddenly stopped, her head tilted. "I hear engines," she said. Ethan froze. "Where?" She pointed up, toward the ridge above them. He signaled everyone to get down. Moments later, Varnex dropships screamed across the sky, searching. Their lights scanned the ground like blades. The squad hid under an icy rock shelf, breaths silent, hearts racing. The ships passed, barely. Once they were gone, Ethan turned to Sira. "How did you hear that before we did?" She tapped a small device behind her ear. "Varnex hearing tech. It's tuned to their comms. You can understand them too?" She nodded. "Some." He stared at her. "Why are you helping us now?" Her voice was low. "Because you saved me. No one else would have." They continued the climb, the wind howling louder now. One soldier, Miller, slipped and nearly fell off a cliff, but Sira caught him. Her alien arm was stronger than it looked. She pulled him back to safety. He stared at her, stunned. "Thanks," he mumbled. She just nodded. Trust was growing, slowly, but it was there. That night, Ethan sat beside her near a weak fire. "If the war ends, what will you do?" She looked up at the stars. "I don't know. I was a weapon. That's all I've ever been." "You don't have to be," Ethan said. "You're more than that." For the first time, she smiled. Not much. Just a little, but it was real. The cold didn't stop. Wind slashed through every crack in their gear as they climbed higher. Snow swallowed their boots, and the path narrowed to the width of a single soldier. No one spoke much. Every word wasted breath. Ethan's eyes scanned the ridge ahead. Something felt wrong. The silence wasn't just cold, it was unnatural. Even the wind had lowered its howl. He raised a hand. The squad stopped. He crouched and peered through his scope. Footprints, fresh ones. Ramirez saw them too. "They're not ours." Ethan nodded. "We're not alone up here." The soldiers gripped their weapons. Sira stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly as her alien tech activated. She pointed to the east, toward a jagged cliff wall. "There's a heat signature behind that rock. 3 life forms, watching us." "How do you know?" Miller asked, voice tight. "My implants," she replied calmly. "They were made to hunt." The soldiers looked at Ethan. He made a choice in seconds. "Circle wide. Stay low. We take no chances." The team moved silently, flanking both sides. But the moment they neared the rock, everything exploded. A plasma shot ripped through the air, hitting the snow in front of Ramirez. Another followed, barely missing Sira's shoulder. Ethan rolled behind cover and shouted, "Return fire!" The cliff turned into a battlefield, but the ambush was sloppy. The attackers weren't Varnex commandos. They were desperate, ragged clothes, stolen gear, survivors, not soldiers. After a tense 5 minutes, Ethan's team overpowered them. No one was killed. The 3 attackers dropped their weapons and raised their hands. One of them, a human woman, stepped forward, bleeding from her arm. "Please, we thought you were Varnex." Ethan lowered his rifle. "We're not. We're trying to survive, same as you." The woman's eyes landed on Sira, her expression twisted. "That's a Varnex. She's the reason we're up here." Ethan stepped between them. "She's not your enemy anymore." The woman spat blood in the snow. "She's not mine either." "Not anymore. But don't expect everyone to agree." Her group was starving, half frozen. They had lost their families in the early bombings. They didn't trust easily. But Ethan shared supplies anyway. He gave them rations, medicine, a fire. He didn't do it for thanks. He did it because they were human. Sira stayed quiet that night. She sat by herself, head down, watching the fire reflect in her glowing eyes. Ethan approached her. "You all right?" She didn't look up. "I am used to hate, but not from your kind, not like that." "They've lost too much," he said. "They're afraid." "They should be," she whispered. "I was like them once. I was trained to kill everything human." "But you didn't," he replied. She looked at him now. Her voice trembled. "Because of you. But if others saw me first, they would have ended me. I wouldn't blame them." Ethan took a deep breath. "That's why I need you to stay strong. We're not just climbing out of this mountain. We're climbing out of something worse, hate that runs deep." The next morning, they moved again. The survivor group split off, heading south to find a different path. Ethan's team and Sira pushed north, but the mountain wasn't done testing them. Midday, a landslide hit. Snow and rock tumbled down like thunder. Ramirez was thrown sideways and hit a tree. Miller screamed as he slid down the slope. Ethan grabbed onto a root, barely keeping himself up. But Sira leaped. Her alien legs moved faster than human reflexes. She sprinted after Miller, jumped over falling debris, and grabbed him by the collar just before he vanished into the abyss. She dug her claws into the ice and held on. Ethan reached them, pulling both to safety. They collapsed, breathless. Miller looked at her, stunned. "You saved me." She was panting. "You would have done the same." He didn't respond, but his face changed. Something deeper than respect had grown between them now. Something closer to loyalty. They kept walking. By nightfall, they saw lights in the distance. A forward base, human-controlled, safe zone. Ethan stared at it for a long time. Sira stepped beside him. "This is where we part?" He didn't answer right away, because deep down, he wasn't sure what they'd do to her. She was still the enemy to many, and helping her might be seen as betrayal. But leaving her now felt worse than any punishment. "I'll think of something," he said. And they started down the final hill. The gates of Outpost Theta opened slowly, snow blowing in as Ethan and his team walked through. Spotlights followed their steps. Human soldiers raised their weapons when they saw Sira walking among them. "Hold fire," Ethan shouted, stepping in front of her. "She's with me." The guards hesitated, then lowered their guns, but their eyes didn't leave the Varnex girl. Whispers spread quickly. An alien had entered their camp, not in chains, but walking freely beside a sergeant. Inside the base, heat returned to their bodies, but tension stayed thick in the air. Medics rushed to treat Miller's bruised ribs and Ramirez's bleeding head. Ethan refused treatment until Sira was seen too. The medic stared at her, unsure. "She's Varnex. She's injured," Ethan snapped. "That's all that matters." Under his orders, they patched her up, though the staff looked uncomfortable. Sira sat still, calm, but her eyes never stopped scanning the room. She was surrounded by enemies, but she didn't look afraid. Only tired. Soon, Ethan was called into the command center. Colonel Briggs stood behind a steel desk. arms crossed, face hard. "You brought a hostile into my base?" "She surrendered," Ethan said firmly. "She was left behind. She helped save my squad." Briggs slammed a report onto the desk. "You disobeyed direct orders. No interaction, no capture. The protocol was clear, and you ignored it." Ethan stood tall. "Protocol didn't save us in the mountains. She did." Briggs leaned in. "Do you know what happens when the news gets out? That a Varnex walked into one of our camps and lived? Soldiers are going to panic. People will scream betrayal." "Let them scream," Ethan replied. "She's not the monster we were told." "She is." Briggs said nothing for a long time. Then he pointed toward the brig. "She stays locked up until I decide what to do." Ethan's jaw clenched, but he nodded. He didn't have the power to fight orders yet. Not here, not now. Guards came for Sira. She didn't resist. As they led her away. She looked back at Ethan. She didn't speak, but her eyes asked a question he couldn't answer. That night, word spread across the base like wildfire. Some soldiers were angry, some confused. A few whispered things Ethan didn't want to hear. Words like traitor, alien lover, and court-martial. Miller stood up in the mess hall and slammed his tray down. "She saved my life. I don't care what she looks like. She didn't have to do it, but she did." Others turned their heads. Some were silent, but a few nodded slowly. The next morning, Ethan visited the holding cells. Sira sat behind a red shield, her body still bruised, her expression calm. "I'm sorry," he said. "You did what you could," she replied softly. "They want to send you away," Ethan added. "Maybe worse. I knew this was a risk," she said. "But I don't regret coming with you." Ethan looked down. "If you testify, if you speak to command, they might listen. Maybe we can." But she shook her head. "They won't hear me." He hated that she was probably right. Later that day, Colonel Briggs summoned Ethan again. "The council wants her transferred to Central Command," Briggs said. "She be interrogated, scanned, tested." Ethan didn't move. "She's not a weapon," he said quietly. "To them she is," Briggs answered. "But we've been given one chance. She can speak before the tribunal tomorrow. If she tells them what you claim, that she helped, that she regrets the war, it might change something." "And if she doesn't?" Ethan asked. "Then she disappears," Briggs replied. Ethan returned to the cell that night. Sira was still there, sitting in silence. He told her everything. She nodded once. "I'll speak." He watched her carefully. "Why?" "Because of you," she said. Then she stood and added, "And because I'm tired of war." The next morning, the tribunal was called in the assembly room. Officers from all over the sector joined on live feeds. Cameras recorded every word. Soldiers gathered behind barriers, watching in silence. Sira walked forward, escorted by guards, standing tall under all the eyes. Ethan sat at her side, but she spoke alone. "I am Sira of the Varnex Corps," she began. "Trained as a scout. Deployed in the first wave. Left behind to die." Gasps filled the air. "But a human saved me," she said. "Not because I asked. Not because I deserved it. But because he believed I could be more than just an enemy." She looked around the room, at soldiers, officers, strangers. "I still don't understand all of your ways. But I understand this mercy is not weakness. And fear is not strength." She paused. Then quietly she added, "If peace is to be possible, someone must stop hating first. I choose to stop." The room was silent when she finished. Asterisk for a long time after Sira finished speaking, the room remained silent. The officers watched their screens. The soldiers in the assembly room didn't move. Even Colonel Briggs leaned back, arms crossed, studying her. Then slowly, one officer tapped his mic. "What are your demands?" he asked. Sira blinked. "I demand nothing." Confused murmurs echoed in the background. I do not come to bargain. She continued, I come because a human taught me something. I was raised to believe your kind were animals. But he showed me you are not. You feel, you choose, and sometimes you forgive. Her words weren't smooth. Her translator glitched. Once or twice. But the truth behind her voice was clear. I do not know if I can fix what my people broke, she added. But I will not be part of it anymore. She lowered her head. Not in shame, but as a soldier surrendering something heavier than a weapon. Colonel Briggs stood. He looked at Ethan, then back at Sira. Finally he said, the tribunal accepts her statement. For now she will remain at this base under watch. But she will not be harmed, nor handed over. Gasps erupted across the hall. Some soldiers clapped, some walked away. Others stayed frozen in disbelief. But the decision had been made. She would live, and Ethan would not be punished. Later that evening, Ethan found her sitting near the base wall, watching the snow fall over the mountains. The war still raged far away, but in that moment, everything felt still. You did it, he said, standing beside her. No, she replied. We did it, he nodded. What happens now? She looked up at the night sky. I don't know. I don't belong to the Varnex anymore. But I do not belong here either. Then stay until you figure it out, he said. No one needs to belong right away. She turned to him. And you? She asked. What will you do? Ethan gave a tired smile. I'll keep doing what I know, helping those I can. Trying to survive. Maybe one day I'll see a world where we're not fighting anyone. Sira's violet eyes softened. That would be a world worth living in. Over the next few days, things changed slowly. Some soldiers refused to go near her. Others offered cautious nods, small gestures of acceptance. When Miller saluted her in the corridor, no one stopped him. The base adapted. Humans and alien, enemy and ally. Not perfect. Not peaceful. But different now. News spread across the human colonies. A Varnex defector. A soldier who chose mercy. A human who disobeyed orders and saved more than just lives. He saved a part of their future on the 10th day. Ethan was called to command again. Colonel Briggs handed him a data pad. What's this? Ethan asked. Coordinates, Briggs replied. We've detected signs of Varnex distress signals. Weak, scattered, survivors maybe. Or others left behind like her. Ethan read the screen. You want me to go? Briggs nodded. You brought one in alive. Maybe you can bring more. Ethan turned toward the hallway where Sira sat, quietly, listening to music one of the engineers had given her. He looked back at Briggs. I won't go without her. Briggs didn't argue. Then take her. And so the mission began again. A small team, a fast ship. New orders not to kill, but to seek. To reach the ones forgotten. To speak instead of shoot. Ethan led them. Sira stood at his side. She wore no armor now, just a jacket, a translator, and a small badge, once human, now hers. They left the base as silent snow fell around them. No crowd, no cheer. Just two people walking into something unknown, not as soldier and enemy, but as something better, as a sign that even in war, mercy could spark change.